In his book, 7 Strategies for Wealth and Happiness, Jim Rohn tells us, you don't want to live your life only to find that ultimately you lived only 1/10 of it, that you let the other 9/10ths go down the drain. Most of us are too familiar with type 1 procrastination. That's when you put things off and then you have to sprint to hit your deadline. This type of procrastination causes stress and suboptimal results, but in the end you get it done because there's a deadline. But there's another type of procrastination, type 2 procrastination, that may be slowly killing your dreams. In this video, we'll talk about what type 2 procrastination is and how it might be negatively impacting your life. We'll also talk about 4 strategies that'll help you pull out of that type 2 procrastination downward spiral. Hi, I'm Linda, and this is The Next Best Time. The goal here is to live life in a way that makes your past self jealous. So the best time to overcome type 2 procrastination would have been 20 years ago, but the next best time is now. So let's start by talking about the difference between type 1 and type 2 procrastination. Tim Urban has a TED Talk called Inside the Mind of a Master Procrastinator. It's very good, it's very funny, I highly recommend it. But he takes us through exactly what's going on in his head as a college student as he's procrastinating all of his final papers. You may be able to relate, I know I can. At the end of Tim's talk, it turns a little bit more serious as he talks about the negative impact that type 2 procrastination has on people's lives. Now, type 2 procrastination is different because it doesn't have a deadline. These are those someday I'm going to do type things. Someday I'm going to take care of my health. Someday I'm going to have more satisfying relationships. Someday I'm going to start a business, write a book, or climb a mountain. But sometimes, slowly but surely, we let these dreams slip away. It reminds me of a line from A Christmas Carol when Belle is breaking up with Scrooge and she says, "You are changed. I have seen your nobler aspirations fall off one by one." So think back to a pivotal time in your life, maybe the graduation from high school or college, or when you first got married, or any other pivotal time when you were setting up, this is what I want to be, this is what I want to do, these are the dreams that I have. I'm going to be a millionaire by the time I'm 35. All of those types of dreams. Have you achieved them? Or has life gotten in the way? Have you set those dreams aside, and have you even forgotten about some of them? We're not going to spend time talking about why this happens. Instead, we're going to look at 4 strategies on how we could turn this around and actually go back and regain and achieve those dreams that we've let slip away. Strategy 1. Begin with the end in mind. And I realize that I stole that from Stephen Covey. It is the second habit of 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, where you talk about how do you want to be remembered? What are the most important things in your life that you want to reflect back on? People that are at the end of their life, what are their regrets? What do they wish they did more of? In Tim Urban's video, he talks about something he calls a life calendar. He takes a box for every week in a 90-year lifetime. And unfortunately, it fits on one slide. All of us have used up some of those boxes, and many of us have used up more than half of those boxes. It's very sobering, maybe even a little depressing. Instead of becoming depressed about that, we can turn this into something powerful. Step 1 is calculate how long you think you're going to live. Are you going to take Tim Urban's 90 years? Or are you going to take the national life expectancy of around 80 to 82 years? Or are you going to pick a relative and say you're going to live that long? Pick a number, doesn't really matter. And then create a box for every week you have left between where you are here and where you're going to be. Now, this is mine. And it all fits neatly on this 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. And every week, one of those boxes disappears. Now, this could be right, this could be wrong. I could get hit by a beer truck tomorrow. I could live to be 100. I don't know. But I'm using how long my mother lived as a proxy for how much longer I'm going to live. Now, you take a look at these boxes. How much do you want to accomplish in this time? How many books do you want to read? How many books do you want to write? How many mountains do you want to climb? How many bottles of wine do you want to drink? This is how many weeks you have left to do the things that you say you want to do. Stoic philosophy embraces something called Momento Mori. Blogger Tobias Weaver says, "The concept of Momento Mori is so powerful because we can use it to add vibrancy to our life. In the knowledge that we are temporary, we can find gratitude for the little time we have. Through the lens of mortality, everything becomes more precious. Time itself falls away from us like sand in an hourglass, and Momento Mori helps us appreciate each grain rather than getting to the end of our lives and realizing it has all passed us by." Psychology Today says, "There's a benefit in accepting that someday you too will die. Recognizing your mortality can help you take stock of your life and open your eyes to the opportunity in front of you. Sensing your mortality can be a catalyst to create something that will outlast you, touch lives that will outlive you, and experience the places and things you'd always filed away in your mind's someday drawer. Now is the only time there is. When you recognize that life is finite, you can finally get life right, to live like you mean it. Or you can let mortality cripple you and can let your fear of death shrink your life." I believe author Paulo Coelho says it best. "We are in such a hurry to grow up, and then we long for our lost childhood. We make ourselves ill earning money, and then we spend all our money on getting well again. We think so much about the future that we neglect the present, and thus experience neither the present nor the future. We live as if we are never going to die, and die as if we never lived." Author Austin Kleon recommends that you read the obituaries every day. And I tried it, not every day, but it's really not depressing. Obituaries are really about life. It's about the celebration of who that person was. This loops us right back to Stephen Covey and talking about how you want to be remembered. Are you living the life that you want to live? When they talk about you, are they going to talk about what you did early in your life? Or are they going to talk about the wonderful things you did in the second half of your life? Okay, so we know we're going to die. We've got that pounded in our head. So now it's time for strategy 2. James Clear wrote a book called Atomic Habits. If you haven't read it, you need to read it. One of the things that he talks about is that very often it's not motivation that we lack, but clarity. And I can so relate to that because as I'm trying to attain those goals, sometimes they're so fuzzy that I don't even know how to even start. To help with this, I like to use an exercise that was created by Warren Buffett. And if it's good enough for Warren Buffett, it's good enough for me. The story goes that Warren Buffett's private pilot was unhappy with what he had accomplished in his life, even though that he flew famous and powerful people all over the world. So Warren Buffett gave him this piece of advice, and it's called the 2-page strategy. So you get 2 sheets of paper. You can do that now and work along with me if you'd like. On the first page, it's really easy. You write down the 25 things that you want to accomplish. Now, Buffett actually talked about what you wanted to accomplish or what you wanted to achieve in business. But I find it difficult to separate business and life. So my lists tend to be all-inclusive of what I want to accomplish in my life. Now, 25 is not an exact number, but it is powerful because it gets you past those first 3 or 4 that you tend to put down easily and starts getting into your brain of what you really, 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 really want. So I encourage you to write as many things as you possibly can. Get past that 3 or 4 and start writing and start writing and start writing and start writing. When you finally exhaust your list, when you can't think of anything else, then you're going to pull out that second sheet of paper. On that second sheet of paper, you are going to write your top 5 priorities from your first sheet of paper. Once you've done that, you're going to take everything else on that first sheet of paper and you're going to avoid it like the plague. The power in this is focus. What are these 5 things that you want to do? If you accomplish one of them, you can go back to your original list and you can move another one over. That's perfectly fine. You can also go back and adjust the list if you want. This is your life. These are your lists. There's nobody watching. There's no list police. So you can readjust this now that you know the rules. But what you want to do is really avoid getting trapped in doing too many things. Thing that I do is I do that with hobbies, and little projects. I've got millions of little projects that remain unfinished because I don't focus on a few to completion. Now that you have your list of 5 things that are important, we're going to move on to strategy number 3, and that's creating a time block calendar. Now you can Google this and you can find lots of examples out there on the internet. I like to do mine in Excel because it's easily editable and it's easy to move things around in. We all have 168 hours in a week. What we do with that is very powerful. So line all of that out, and the first thing you need to put in there is sleep, because a lot of us rob ourselves of the sleep that we need, which makes us very ineffective at the rest of it. So get your sleep in there, get your big rocks, stealing from Stephen and Covey again, and get those important things onto this block calendar. You're not going to go into a lot of detail on the block calendar because it's kind of in chunks. If you spend 8, 10, 12 hours at work, you're going to block that out, but you also want to put pieces, chunk it down a little bit more in those 8, 10, 12 hours. So when do you contact clients? When do you work with your team? When do you catch up on email? Approximately how many hours a week are you spending doing those tasks? And then outside of work, when are you getting your exercise in? When are you spending time with friends and families? When are you doing your time wasters? If you want to scroll through TikTok, if you want to look at YouTube videos, if you want to watch a movie, if you're into sports, that's perfectly fine, but go ahead and put those intentionally into this calendar. It's completely editable, and it's something that you're going to go back to. One of the ways it's been very powerful for me is when I have worked from a checklist, I want to do this and this and this and this and this and all these things, and maybe even habit trackers, other things like that, I become overwhelmed, and when I put it into a block calendar, I find out that actually I've been trying to do too much. So I can edit down all those things that I'm not going to be able to do right now and can focus in on those things that are really important. So now we've got our time block calendar. Now it's time for strategy number 4, and it's called reflect and adjust. So every day, every week, every month, every quarter, every year, at the end of every project, whatever those natural breaks are, go back and look and evaluate what have you learned from working your calendar. Are you creating enough time? Are you wasting time? Do you need to move things around? Were you too ambitious about what time you're going to get up? Were you too ambitious about how many times you're going to go to the gym? You can re-edit everything along the way, and that's really important. What did you learn, and what are you going to do differently? And sometimes that's just taking stuff out of your calendar. You're just too ambitious. So with those, you'll be able to start climbing out of the type 2 procrastination and continue to attain your dreams. And I want to leave you with one last quote from T.S. Eliot. He says, "Only those who will risk going too far can possibly find out how far one can go." See you next time.